Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the synthesis of yoga. We are on page 99, as always, with our beloved Ranga, self-surrender in works. Beginning with the line, the individual soul, or the conscious being in a form.
I think we have already read it, so we'll read each sentence. And the individual soul or the conscious being in a form may identify itself with this experiencing Purusha or with this active Prakriti. So, first of all, what is the individual soul? The individual soul, he is using the word soul. So it could be the self or it could be also the psychic being.
But it's not all cap. It's not a cap S.
Yeah, that's right. So the individual soul in Sanskrit is called the Jivatman. It's a portion of the divine. It is divine in essence. In the self, it is universal, yet it is individual also. When you first experience it, you experience it as your own self, but then in a cosmic consciousness, you see there is a self of all others. So essentially it is one, but it is different. Your soul and my soul are essentially both divine, but that doesn't mean to say that they are of the same make and the same model and the same characteristics. No, they are all different. Because the divine manifests himself in different ways. Your soul may have one destiny, my soul may have another destiny. Just look at Sri Aurobindo into literature and philosophy, and Mother into music and painting.
Exactly.
So it's totally different. So the individual soul or the conscious being in a form. So the form is your body, mind, life.
Yes.
Okay, may identify itself with this experiencing Purusha or this active Prakriti. So the experiencing Purusha, the Purusha only experiences but does not react. That's a witness self, and it can be in different poises also. So the Purusha is normally experienced in the spiritual planes of consciousness. Higher mind, 11th mind, intuitive mind, overmind. Level 2 if you want. So he only experiences, or with that of the active Prakriti.
Yes, it's an identification. Identify itself.
Yeah. What is our condition here? We are identifying ourselves with the active Prakriti, but unconsciously. We don't know that we are identifying ourselves with our body, mind, life. When you are told, you say, yes, this is what I am. So that it can. But you can identify yourself with Prakriti consciously also in the spiritual planes of consciousness. You can feel yourself to be here in the physical world, in everything. So, if it identifies itself with Prakriti, it is not master, enjoyer and knower, but reflects the modes and workings of Prakriti. That's exactly what happens to us. Okay. If it identifies itself with Prakriti, that means the body, mind, life. Here, Prakriti would mean the body, mind, life individually. At the universal level, it's not the body, mind, life, but it's the plane of matter, the plane of prana, and the plane of mind. Okay, so in the spiritual planes of consciousness, that's what happens. But in the individual, at our level, level 1, we identify ourselves with our body, mind, life.
And the life around us.
Yes.
Everything.
That's right. We don't identify ourselves with the life around us, but we see it as real. We have a relation with them. But reflects the modes and workings of Prakriti. So that's interesting, because the Purusha is inactive but thinks that it is doing all the actions of the body, mind, life. That is what is meant by reflecting. It is itself not acting, but it is reflecting.
Yes.
To make it more clear, we could put it in this way. The screen, the cinema screen, which is rectangular and white, okay? Let's say it is not even white, because that would be a feature, because the So it is not even white, it is not even rectangular, it's infinite. So think of the cinema screen and the images falling on it. What are the images? Bodily actions, vital emotions, mental thoughts. These are the images falling on the screen, and the screen is a conscious one because it's a self. And the screen is thinking, this is what I am. These are what I am. These images are what I am. So you could explain it in that way. You are doing actions, you think, I am doing. I am having emotions, I am angry, I am happy. Okay? Actually, you are not. It's your vital that is angry and happy, and you are identifying yourself with it. I am thinking. You are not thinking. Thoughts are occurring in you. So that's what he's saying. Okay? If it identifies itself with Prakriti, it is not master. Because obviously, we can't control our thoughts nor our actions sometimes even. Okay? Sometimes when you have a cramp, you don't know how to control your body even. Okay?
But it says also not master, enjoyer, and knower.
Yeah. So
it's
that
neither of these.
Yeah, because that is a gradation which occurs in the spiritual planes of consciousness. When you identify yourself with Purusha, then you can be only the witness, or you can be the supporter of the body mind life. You are the Bharta, or you can be the enjoyer, Bhokta. You can consciously enjoy what the body mind life is doing. In other words, at that time, you are enjoying everything. Now we enjoy, but we also suffer. We are attracted and we are repulsed. But at that stage, you will start enjoying everything if your samatha is perfect. So, enjoyer. Everything is enjoyed. Okay? And knower. Because you have got sufficient knowledge of what you are and what the physical world is. So, this is the gradation given in the Gita. The chapter is the way of the Gita. So he is talking of that. In fact, he has eliminated one or two. He has not included here Bharta, Bhokta he has included, but Bharta he has not, the support. Okay, so in the Gita it is there, all these are there. First you are the witness. You are inactive and you are just watching without any emotion, without any action. Then you realize that the body-mind life is really an extension of your own, and if you did not support the body-mind life, it would not even exist. So you are actually supporting the body-mind life. You are the Bharta. Then you start enjoying. You are the Bhokta. And then finally you are the Jnata, the knower. So these are the gradations in the Gita. And finally you become the Ishvara master. So when you are identified with body-mind life, you are none of these things. That's what he's saying. So what are you? You are just a slave of nature. Okay, but reflects the modes and workings of Prakriti. It enters by its identification into that subjection and mechanical working which is characteristic of her. So the body, mind and vital are a machine. They are working mechanically. We don't think it is working mechanically. To a certain extent we can say that the body is working mechanically. The kidneys are functioning automatically, the heart is beating automatically, the stomach is digesting automatically. I am not willing it to, but it's happening. So the muscles also cooperate with your movements, so everything is happening. But it's a machine, and the machine can go wrong. And the computer that is guiding all these actions is in the brain. And if the brain also there is a problem somewhere, it affects the function, corresponding function. So if you have a stroke, then you get paralyzed on one side. We don't think of it that way, but even when I am walking, each movement is supervised and permitted by the brain. The brain's function is so detailed. So that's what it is. It's a mechanical, it's a machine. Okay. So it enters by its identification into that subjection. Note the word subjection. You are a slave. And mechanical working which is characteristic of her. And even by an entire immersion in Prakriti, this soul becomes inconscient or subconscient, asleep in her forms as in the earth and the metal, or almost asleep as in plant life. So, to a certain extent,
Yeah.
at the mental, our human level, we are conscious. There is something, you are conscious more of the ego, but still, the ego also is a reflection of the self. But it can go even deeper, become unconscious, as in plants, he is saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost
Yeah.
asleep. Very beautiful.
Inconscient or subconscient, asleep and in her forms as in the earth, completely asleep and the metal, and almost asleep in the plant life. So there is a gradation of consciousness, and it depends at which level you are identifying yourself with. There, in that inconscience, it is subject to the domination of tamas, the principle, the power, the qualitative mode of obscurity and inertia. And even an entire immersion in Prakriti, this soul becomes inconscient or subconscient, asleep in her forms as in the earth and the metal, or almost asleep as in plant life. There, in that inconscience, it is subject to the domination of tamas, the principle, the power, the qualitative mode of obscurity and inertia. It translates into inactivity, settling in your comfort zone, being lazy,
Dullness.
dull, not intelligent. All these are not seeking knowledge, very satisfied with yourself. These are the characteristics of tamas. But it's a principle, it's not a psychological, it's a principle that exists everywhere in nature also, outside yourself. Matter is subjected to tamas. Then the principle, the power, qualitative mode of obscurity and inertia. Sattva and rajas are there, but they are concealed in the thick coating of tamas. All the three are always there in unequal proportions. They are never there fully equal. If they become equal, then you can escape. There is no movement and you can escape and go to the self. That's the Sankhya philosophy.
But Rajas is almost
Rajas is the life principle.
under the control of the inconscience, in this case. There, in that inconscience,
Yes.
it is subject to the domination of tamas,
Yes.
even Rajas.
Yes. That's right.
Yes.
That's the interesting part. That's what he says. That when we are in the material consciousness, that is the principle that dominates over others. When you are a very vital person, then the vitality takes the prominence part, and even the mind and the material part of you are under the domination of vitality. And when you are a mental man, the mind has more power over the vital and the. So it depends at which level you are stationed. That becomes the primary characteristic.
But here he's speaking about the domination of tamas.
Yes, you are absolutely. He is talking of matter. In
Yes.
matter, tamas is the ruling principle, and the others are there but subordinate and under the subjection of tamas.
Yes.
Okay, so the domination of tamas, the principle, the power, the quality, motive. Sattva and rajas are there, but they are concealed in the thick coating of tamas. Emerging into its own proper nature of consciousness, but not yet truly conscious, because there is still too great a domination of tamas in the nature, the embodied being becomes more and more subject to rajas. So, when life comes out of matter, the principle of rajas is beginning to show itself. Life, movement,
Life force.
life force, prana. That's the force that comes up. But it is the influence of tamas is still there. That's why there is no intelligence Okay, in plants there is no intelligence. There is an intelligence which is hidden. That's the instinct, because the supermind also is there. But it's not intelligence as we understand it. The embodied being becomes more and more subject to rajas, the principle, the power and qualitative mode of action and passion, impelled by desire and instinct. He is very clearly putting the word instinct also, because the instinct is the image of the intuition in the life element. It hides itself and becomes instinct. Now, instinct is something that is a very, very purposeful action in the animal, but it is done unconsciously. Like the migration of birds, like the building of nests of animals, the cats start looking for a hiding place before the kittens come. Okay? And the spider weaves its web for catching food. All these are all the instinct in animals. It's an intelligence, but it's a very obscure intelligence. Mechanical intelligence, if you want. Impelled by desire and instinct. There is then formed and developed the animal nature, narrow in consciousness, rudimentary in intelligence, rajaso tamasic in vital habit and impulse. There is a combination of tamas as well as rajas. Life does move, but there are grades. The lion and the tiger show more of rajas, but then you have the other one. You have the sloth bear, you have the koala bears, and you have the other creatures which are so slow moving. That's the tamasic principle that is operating there.
Would you call the bear who sleeps for 6 months in a cave?
Yeah, that's a hibernation. Yeah.
Yeah. Would that be tamasic? Not
No,
at all.
that's a process.
A process.
That's a process. Because the winter is too cold, so it hides itself. It goes into a sort of a grotto, like ice grotto, if you want, and then it gives birth to 1 or 2, sometimes even 3 cubs. Okay, and then it loses its weight. So before winter comes, it gorges itself with fish and becomes fat, and then that fat is slowly, it loses half its weight when spring comes. So this is all meaningful and intelligent action, but it is done mechanically. Hibernation. It then formed and developed the animal nature, narrow in consciousness. Very little consciousness is there. Rudimentary in intelligence, rajaso tamasic in vital habit and impulse. I went into detail because of rajaso tamasic. Sometimes the rajas is more, sometimes the tamas is more. Very clearly you can see the animals that move very, very slowly. Even at the lower level, look at the ants, with what energy they move. Tremendous speed they move in. But you see the worm or the caterpillar, again, a very slow movement. So sometimes it is this, sometimes it is that. Rajaso tamasic. In vital habit and impulse. Emerging yet farther from the great inconscience towards a spiritual. Emerging yet farther from the great inconscience towards a spiritual status, the embodied being liberates sattva, the mode of light, and acquires a relative freedom and mastery and knowledge, and with it a qualified and conditioned sense of inner satisfaction and happiness. So, emerging yet farther from the great inconscience towards a spiritual status, the embodied being liberates sattva. Sattva comes up. The principle of understanding, knowledge, enlightenment, and balance and harmony. Acquires a relative freedom, not the true freedom, because if you have true freedom, you can do You can even use, you're forced to do anything you want in the world, but no. Mainly you are a witness in a spiritual status. You are only a witness, you don't have full power. But you are free, but not free to do anything you want. You are just a witness. That's why he's saying relative freedom. And mastery also, and knowledge. Mastery also is semi-mastery, not the full thing. At least you are not a slave anymore. So master knowledge with a qualified and conditioned sense of inner satisfaction and happiness.
Yeah, he makes it very clear, huh? Qualified.
Yes, that's right. So qualified and
Conditioned.
conditioned sense of inner satisfaction and happiness. He is talking of the witness self, where you have a sense of freedom and peace. So the happiness, inner satisfaction, they use the word, you are satisfied because there is no desires anymore in the witness self. So there is a steady happiness. The happiness is not rapture, it's just a happy condition. There is no suffering, so it's a happy condition. But it's qualified and conditioned. It's not the full thing. Man, the mental being in a physical body, should be, but is not, except in a few among this multitude of ensouled bodies of this nature. So man, he's saying, can be sattvic, but is not. Mostly not. Okay, should be of this nature. Should be, but is not, except in a few among this multitude of ensouled bodies of this nature. Ordinarily, he has too much in him of the obscure earth inertia and a troubled, ignorant animal life force to be a soul of light and bliss and even a mind of harmonious will and knowledge. So these things are rare in human beings. That's what he's saying. There is here in man an incomplete and still hampered and baffled ascension towards the true character of the Purusha, free, master, knower and enjoyer. So, man can become, but it is still, his efforts are still hampered and baffled. He doesn't have a clear idea of what he is saying. Yet he wants to be something better than what he is. The idea of progress is always there in man. Sri Aurobindo repeats this idea in many places. The sense of perfectibility is there in man, ingrained in man. And it can take many, many levels. I want to have a better life. I want to live in a better house. I want to eat better food. Even this is a sense of perfectibility. I can improve all these things. Then science is doing that all the time. It is getting rid of diseases. It is trying to control nature. So this is always, the sense of perfectibility is always there. It's not there in the animals, yes?
No, that's correct. Yeah.
This sense of perfectibility is not there in the animals. It comes with man. There is here in man an incomplete and still hampered and baffled ascension. Baffled. He is not quite sure as to what it is, but there is an urge in him to become better towards the true character of the Purusha. And what is that? Freedom, mastery, knowledge and enjoyment. So these are what he can become if he becomes a Purusha. Okay. For these are in human and earthly experience relative modes, none giving its single and absolute fruit. All are intermixed with each other, and there is not the pure action of any of them anywhere. He is talking of the three gunas.
Yes.
None of them are absolute. A man is not absolutely lazy and inactive. He is not absolutely energetic, nor is he fully enlightened. So, they are all partly acting one in another. All are intermixed with each other, and there is not the pure action of any one of them anywhere. Okay? It is their confused and inconstant interaction that determines the experiences of the egoistic human consciousness swinging in nature's uncertain balance. So the uncertain balance that he's talking about is that sattva, rajas, tamas are always in different proportions in everybody. Somebody may have a lot of tamasic tendency in him, somebody may have a very vitalistic tendency in him, somebody may be more sattvic, he may be more mentalized. So it's all different. And when the three modes of nature become equal to each other, then you can get liberation. You can come out. Okay, so that's what he's saying. So the sign of the immersion of the embodied soul in Prakriti is the limitation of consciousness to the ego. The vivid stamp of this limited consciousness can be seen in a constant inequality of the mind and heart and a confused conflict and disharmony in their varied reactions to the touches of experience. The human reactions sway perpetually between the dualities created by the soul's subjection to nature and by its often intense but narrow struggle for mastery and enjoyment. A struggle for the most part ineffective. The soul circles in an unending round of nature's alluring and distressing opposites, success and failure, good fortune and ill fortune, good and evil, sin and virtue, joy and grief, pain and pleasure. It is only when awaking from its immersion in Prakriti, it perceives its oneness with the One and its oneness with all existences that it can become free from these things and found its right relation in this executive world nature. Then it becomes indifferent to her inferior modes, equal minded to her dualities, capable of mastery and freedom. It is seated above her as a high throned knower and witness, filled with the calm, intense, unalloyed delight of his own eternal existence. The embodied spirit continues to express its powers in action, but it is no longer involved in ignorance, no longer bound by its works. Its actions have no longer a consequence within it, but only a consequence outside in Prakriti. The whole movement of nature becomes to its experience a rising and falling of waves on the surface that make no difference to its own unfathomable peace, its wide delight, its vast universal equality, or its boundless God existence. There is a footnote here, and we might as well read the footnote. It is not indispensable for the Karma Yoga to accept implicitly all the philosophy of the Gita. We may regard it, if we like, as a statement of psychological experience, useful as a practical basis for the yoga. Here it is perfectly valid and in entire consonance with a high and wide experience. For this reason, I have thought it well to state it here as far as possible in the language of modern thought, omitting all that belongs to metaphysics rather than to psychology. So,
we need an explanation of the footnote too.
Yeah. So he is making it very clear that the integral yoga, he's not saying that very clearly here, but he says elsewhere, that the integral yoga goes even beyond the Gita. The Gita does not go to the ultimate experience of the supramental because probably it was not yet time for it. He says that in the essence of the Gita, he says that purposely did not reveal because it would have been wasted words at that stage. You have not yet reached the place where you will understand what is being said. Because the Gita does not speak of the transformation of the body, mind, life. That's why he's mentioning this. So, very interesting para, and we'll see what he's saying. The sign of the immersion of the embodied soul in Prakriti is a limitation of consciousness to the ego. So, note the words carefully. The sign of the immersion of the embodied soul in nature. So, when the soul is embodied, the soul can be out of the body. So, when it is in the body, embodied soul, in Prakriti, Prakriti is your body, mind, life. Okay? The limitation of it is subject to the limitation of consciousness to the ego. So, when you are identified with your body, mind, life, the ego is the dominant feature in you. That's what he's saying. And what is the ego? The sense of separation. That you feel yourself to be separate from everybody else. Not only everybody else, but everything else also. I'm not the computer, I'm not the pen. I'm myself. So, which is not a reality. There is a commonness everywhere which we don't see. Okay? So that's what he's saying. Ego. When your soul is trapped, imprisoned in your body, mind, life, same way using the word immersion, completely drowned in the body, mind, life, then it is the ego that is operating. The vivid stamp of this limited consciousness can be seen in a constant inequality of the mind and heart and a confused conflict and disharmony in their varied reactions to the touches of experience. Now, what are the touches of experience? He is using the interesting word touches of experience. In the Gita, they use the word bahya sparsha. The outward influences coming from the external world and entering into you. It can be physical, it can be vital, it can be mental. It can also be subtle waves. It can be sound waves entering your ear. It can be smells entering your nose. It can be food entering into your body. It can be other emotions entering into your vital. That also is possible. So all these are the touches of experience. So in the Gita, they use the word bahya sparsha, external touches. Okay? And you react. So the human reaction, the vivid stamp of this limited consciousness can be seen in a constant inequality of the mind and heart and a confused conflict and disharmony in their varied reactions to the touches of experience. He's telling you that the sign of the ego is this. You are reacting very, very in varied manners, and there is a disharmony between what is coming in, and there is no harmony between what is coming in and your reaction. But if the ego is not there and the soul is not embodied, then you are absolutely calm and there is a harmony in the being. Everything that comes in is not affecting you at all. That's the implication. You are completely at calm. There is no disharmony at all. And there is no varied reaction. Samatha is the opposite of varied reactions. I am angry, I am happy. I am disturbed, I am at peace. So these are the varied reactions. But when you are in perfect samatha, nothing is affecting you. So it's absolutely equal. It's not even a reaction, it's just an equal state. The human reactions sway perpetually between the dualities created by the soul's subjection to nature. So again, soul subjection to nature, he is using different words, but he is meaning immersion of the embodied soul in Prakriti. Different words meaning the same thing. So just see, immersion of the embodied soul in Prakriti, and here he is saying soul's subjection to nature. Nature is the body, mind, life, and your soul is subjected to nature. It is immersed in nature. Okay? And by its often intense but narrow struggle for mastery and enjoyment. Struggle for the most part ineffective. When you are in the egoistic consciousness, your satisfaction is never complete. And mostly you are struggling, but you are not really succeeding much. That's what he's saying. Ineffective. Okay? For the most part, he is not exaggerating. He's saying for the most part, ineffective. The soul circles in an unending round of nature's alluring and distressing opposites. So these are the dualities. Alluring, something attracts you, which is pleasant, and something repulses you when it is not, it is unpleasant. Okay. So, the soul circles in an unending round of nature's alluring and distracting opposites. Success and failure. He is listing a huge number of the normal dualities. Success and failure. Success makes you happy, failure makes you unhappy. Good fortune and ill fortune. Same thing. Good and evil. Sin and virtue. Joy and grief. Pain and pleasure. This is the condition of normal man. You are subject to both.
Now, question arises, and that is, should one, at our stage, body, mind, life, pay attention to evil and what's going on in the world?
You normally...
Falsehood, lies, etc.
This is a problem that you ask quite frequently. When you are in the normal consciousness, this is what happens to everybody. Okay? You see evil and you are repulsed. But if you start developing in consciousness, you start seeing that everything, first of all, you stop being disturbed. Because when you feel yourself disturbed, you don't like, there's a disturbance in the being and there's your whole day is spoilt. Suppose you have an argument with somebody, and that will ruin your whole day. At the background of your consciousness is an uncertainty and you are not able to think clearly, you don't know what to do, you'll be confused in your action. So the developed man will start saying, I should not get disturbed. So then evil also, he will not be disturbed. Slowly. But so long as you are in the egoistic consciousness, it is sure to happen. You can't avoid it. So your question should be, when you are starting consciously yoga, then you should of course try to get not to be affected by these things. But you won't succeed. It's only a mental effort. The success comes when your soul is not embodied anymore. It is outside the body. Then the success can come. And that also is very interesting. Success where? For the soul. Not for the body, mind, life. That's what he's going to tell you later on. We'll see that. This has to be clearly understood. The consciousness is not suffering. The consciousness is not attracted or distressed by anything. The body, mind, life continues because there is a consciousness in the body, there is a consciousness in the vital, there is a consciousness in the mind. So that is still operating like of old. Old habits continue. But you are not affected by it anymore. Okay? So it's worthwhile going into this because I'll give you two examples. Okay, one is Raman Maharshi's. He had cancer in the shoulder. So they asked him whether they should use anesthesia or not. So he said, you do whatever you feel like. But when there is anesthesia, the body won't feel pain. But if they don't use anesthesia, he will feel the pain in the body, not the consciousness. Outside watching, he is absolutely calm. But the body you will see is in pain, distress. Okay? So you may feel that he is not in equality, but the consciousness is in equality. Is complete equality, not affected at all. At our level, the body also will feel the pain, but it will affect you inwardly also. But inwardly, you can remain absolutely calm, your soul will not be disturbed at all, but the body, mind, life will undergo the pain. I am going to touch upon a very sensitive subject. Okay, we could hear when Mother was undergoing her transformation. Okay, there used to be a lot of, she used to howl with pain.
Oh yes.
We used to hear all that downstairs.
Oh yes.
So someone who doesn't understand this principle will say, they are subject to pain. She is not subject to pain. It's the body that is subject to pain. She is absolutely calm and quiet with it, watching. It's like watching somebody else having pain. So even Sri Aurobindo, when he was, that uranic poisoning was there, okay, this has to be understood very clearly, otherwise you will come to wrong conclusions. The soul is different from the body-mind life. The body-mind life is not yet liberated. The liberation of the body-mind life will come only with the supramental transformation.
It's very clear.
Yeah. Then even the body will not feel the effect of the dualities. It will not feel. So, in fact, Sri Aurobindo said to Niruddha, why don't you do something? Do something, because the pain was so intense. But he is not. He is up there without any pain.
He said that to Narad.
Yeah, there's a. He said, why don't you do something about it? So, physically also. Normally they give you morphine and painkillers and all that. So, but mother's was more obvious. No?
Yes.
So, we'll touch upon this subject a little more, because even the avatar has to undergo the law of karma. It has to undergo the law of karma. For the most part, in effect, the soul circles in an unending round of nature's alluring and distressing opposites, success and failure, good fortune and ill fortune, good and evil, sin and virtue, joy and grief, pain and pleasure. It is only when awaking from its immersion in Prakriti, that means it is not imprisoned in the body-mind life anymore. It is awaking from its immersion in Prakriti. It perceives its oneness with the One and its oneness with all existences. This phrase means the cosmic consciousness. Its oneness with all existences is the cosmic consciousness. You feel yourself to be one with everybody. Okay? And also with God. Its oneness with the One and its oneness with all, that it can become free from all these things. What are these things? Dualities. He has listed them. And found its right relation to this executive world nature. Then you can have the right relation, the soul can have the right relation with the body-mind life. They are only instruments which you are using. That's what you feel. In fact, in synthesis later on he will tell you that the body is felt like an instrument in your hand. When you have an instrument in your hand, you don't identify yourself with the instrument. But at that time, that's what you will feel. That the body-mind life is like an instrument in the hand.
Interesting that Sri Aurobindo uses immersion in the first sentence and immersion again
That's
here
right.
to emphasize it.
Yes. And in another place, he has not used immersion, but he says subject to nature. Meaning is the same. Then it becomes indifferent to the inferior modes, equal-minded to her dualities, capable of mastery and freedom. It becomes capable of mastery and freedom. Now note carefully, it is seated above her. Who is the her? The body-mind life, the nature, world nature or Prakriti. As a high-throned knower and witness, filled with the calm, intense, unalloyed delight of its own eternal existence. It's in peace, eternal peace, and it is not disturbed at all. It is not immersed in nature, it is standing above. And he is using interesting words. He is saying high-throned. You are sitting on a throne high up. You are a king. The word throne suggests you are a king, you are a master, you are the Lord.
Ruler.
Yeah. And in the Gita they use the word seated at the summit. Kutastha. You are seated at the summit and you are watching below in the valley all the movement and you are not bothered at all about it. Okay. And witness filled with the calm, intense, unalloyed delight of its own eternal existence. Now, note carefully. The embodied spirit continues to express its powers in action but is no longer involved in ignorance, no longer bound by its works. So, the embodied spirit continues to express its powers. All the old habits that your body had, it will continue to have. All the old habits that your vital had will continue to happen.
Oh.
But you are not affected anymore. You are standing outside and you are not affected anymore. The old habits continue. But if you want to do something about that also, you can, because you are master. You can stop giving permission to the body, mind and life to do what it is doing, because earlier you had permitted yourself. You yourself have permitted the body, mind, life to do what it is doing. Now you stop that permission. Then slowly the habits die out. That's what he is describing here. Okay. The embodied spirit continues to express its powers in action, but is no longer involved in ignorance, no longer bound by its works. Its actions have no longer a consequence within it, but only a consequence outside in Prakriti. This is what is meant by I am free. The consciousness is free, but the Prakriti is still subject to law of karma.
Active. It continues to be
It
active.
continues to act and it is subject to the law of karma of your past lives.
Ah, yes.
So that is the reason why Ramakrishna had cancer, Raman Maharshi had cancer, okay? Vivekananda had diabetes, okay? The body is not perfected at all. Only the supramental is going to change all this. That's why Sri Aurobindo holds stress on the supramental. No longer. So the embodied spirit continues to express. And this is another interesting thing. Either your soul can remain outside the body, mind, life, but it can even come into your body, mind, life, but remain absolutely calm and not affected. But the body, mind, life will undergo the consequences of your actions. That's what is being said. Okay, so the embodied spirit continues to express its powers in action, but it is no longer involved in ignorance. You are not subject to ego, you are not subject to the sattva, rajas, tamas. You are free. No longer bound by its works. Its actions have no longer a consequence within it, but only a consequence outside in Prakriti. Outside in Prakriti, body, mind, life. So the consequences will continue. Your law of karma will operate, and whatever you have done in the past will bear fruit now in your body, mind, life, but not in your consciousness.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So the whole movement of nature becomes to its experience a rising and falling of waves on the surface that make no difference to its own unfathomable peace, its wide delight, its vast universal equality, or its boundless God existence. So you become completely free and you are not subjected to the duality of the body, mind, life. You are free. This is how far the Gita goes. That's why he has put the footnote and saying that up to this point it's okay, but we don't need to think that the body, mind, life will remain ever subject to the dualities. That also can change. So these are the conditions of our effort, and they point to an ideal which can be expressed in these or in equivalent formulae. Three things are there. So equivalent formulae. How to do that? He is telling you 3 paras. To live in God and not in the ego. To move vastly founded, not in the little egoistic consciousness, but in the consciousness of the all soul and the transcendent. So this is the first. You have to live in God and not in the ego. How to do that? We'll come to that later on. To be perfectly equal in all happenings and to all beings, and to see and feel them as one with oneself and one with the divine. to feel all in oneself and all in God, to feel God in all, oneself in all. We'll go into detail next time because this will take time.
Namaste all.